Well, I guess it's been a while, so I do apologize for that. It's been quite busy, holidays, all the other fun stuff, uh, but I'm here. I'm back. I have a couple of things I'm working on. One is going to be pretty cool, but I haven't had time to start it yet. I've got one more piece that is required for me to put it together, so look forward to that. I'll be getting that done soon. But today, I have another sign that I'm going to be doing. I've got somebody that needs another one of these signs for their business. I've been getting quite a few of these signs, which is kind of cool. It's nice to do. So without further ado, let me go ahead and get started. I'm going to be doing some scroll saw work on here. And some painting as well, because this is a little bit of a colorful sign. I do have the backer board ready. Let me go show you that. I'm gonna sand it all down, get rid of a lot of that red on there, and dry brush a little bit with the white. And here are all the pieces I'm cutting out. The text is quite straightforward. That's pretty easy to understand. These two pieces are kind of going to be the background pieces for the sign. Then I've cut this, I've printed this out. I'm going to cut this out. So these leaves will go up on top here to give it more of a three-dimensional look, with these even going on top of that for that next level. And then again, the background. And then we have this so that we can get those peppers popping off of here so they look like they're in front of the tomatoes. And then the garlic. Here's the garlic, and then this clove will be cut out all by itself and put on top. All of this is going to be painted. I'll flash a picture up on the screen here shortly to show you just what we're looking at, what the finished piece is being based off of. As you can see on these, there's some pretty thin areas on these letters. So I've got a number 1 blade in here, super thin. I'm going to go really slow and cut out all the inner parts of these first, then I'll start cutting the outsides. I do have a backer board on here. I'm not sure if you can see, there's 2 boards put together. That's to help eliminate some blowout, and especially on some of these smaller pieces, I don't have a zero clearance hole here, so things could fall through, although none of these are small enough to go through that. But again, that's as my dad always used to say, famous last words, they will fall through. So let's get started. I do want to make sure you can see this is real time right here, how slow I'm actually going. I'm not sure how the blade looks, because I know on camera it seems kind of funky. It does a weird, it looks really weird on camera, but I am going super slow here. My blade's on a really low speed, and it gives me time to carefully cut out, especially in these little thin, tiny areas. Plus, if I go too fast, I'm afraid that I could easily just go right outside of the line, and that'll cause a real problem when I cut the outside, around the outside of each of the letters. So this will be the only one I go actual speed, so that you can see how long it really takes to do a cut. And there it is, just like so. Here I go with these tiny, tiny little letters. So let's see how this works. So I'm not sure if you can tell. I'm going to move the camera in a little bit closer. I'm undercutting these so that there is a little bit of white showing around them. I want to keep basically make the letters a little bit thicker. Honestly, I think the drill bit did a nice enough job on the inside of there. All right, got that one out. One last inside piece, and then it's time to cut out the letters. All right, let's cut some of these guys out. All right, so we can see that I got this little guy cut out. I do have two letters. One's thinner and one's thicker. There's the thin one, and if I can, I'd like to use the thicker letters, just because they pop off a little more. They leave a nicer shadow on the sign. Now, hopefully, all right, camera, focus on that. All right, so there's that little letter. Pretty tiny, but I'm pretty happy with it. And I made it a little bit thicker while I was cutting, and I obviously did that on purpose. Now, one thing I could do with these is, if I have problems with small letters, I have a small laser, and I could cut out these letters on the laser, but I would prefer, I like my stuff to all be done by hand. I just like the look of that. It's not perfect, and it's not going to be, and that's perfectly fine with me. It is handmade stuff. I did recently do a sign where I was having problems. The letters were thinner than this even. I had to laser it, but it was only 2 words that was tiny text. And once it's all put together, it looks great, and you really can't tell that that one little piece was done with a laser. All right, I'm down to the final of the tiny letters, and then I get to move up to the medium size, and I'm very excited about that. Okay, so hang on. Make sure this is working. All right. So what I'm going to do now for this sign is I'm going to cut out, these are the rest of the parts of the sign. The basil leaf, that goes at the base or at the bottom underneath the text. And then tomatoes, the chili peppers, and the garlic, that goes across the top. But what I want to do is I want to make it a little more three-dimensional. So after we cut this out, then I've got this piece, and it's got this. I'll cut this piece of basil leaf out. That'll then sit or be glued on top of the other basil leaf that I'm cutting out as the base. And then over here at the bottom, you can see there's 2 leaves. Those will sit on top of the 2 leaves here, which is not easy to do with one hand. These 2 leaves here. So that's going to give it this 3-layered, 3-dimensional look. And that goes the same for the peppers, garlic, That'll sit on top of the tomatoes so they pop out. And then we have right here, we have the garlic. So that's what we're doing. And I just realized I think I'm missing something. I'm missing a small piece for my the top of my tomatoes. So let me see if I can find that. So perfect, I found it. It was on my workbench, just hidden underneath my my mask, dust mask. So found this. This is the tops of the tomatoes. The stems, those are going to get cut out and also be placed on there as well. So again, this full three-dimensional look. All right, so I always like to cut out the inside pieces first. It gives me a lot more space to hang on to around these while I'm cutting. So I'm going to go ahead and get these all cut out. These are all cut out now. So I'm going to go ahead and outline my basil leaves. Well, I love when that happens. No big deal. I'll just glue it together. There'll be some other pieces that go on top. So this is going to sit like this on here. And then I'm going to be cutting out these two leaves next to go on top of that. And so that won't make a whole lot of difference there, because once this is all glued together, I'm going to take my Dremel and I'm going to round these edges just a little to make them look more like rounded leaves, rounded stems, and what have you. So I've got these all cut out. I've glued them up, so they're all glued together now on here. And so there's the pieces. That's they're complete. What I want to get next is I want to bring over the backer that this is going on, the base, and kind of set these in place, see how it looks, and then go from there. All right, there we go. Sort of a dry fit sort of a thing. Obviously the letters are not perfectly straight. Everything's not perfectly centered, but that gives me the idea of what we're going for. What I'll be doing is I'm going to be painting these to the correct color. Letters are going to be painted black, and this background is what I'm going to start on next. I'm going to go ahead and sand this down. This color is not what it's going to be. This is just reclaimed wallboard, and I want to just remove some of this redwood look from it, and we'll go from there. All sanded, well, with the orbital sander. That's just 80 grit. Because of these grooves, I'm going to go ahead and just take some sandpaper sheets, and by hand I'll sand the rest of this piece nice and smooth. And then once that's all good and smooth, I'll put a stain on it, and it's going to be, not sure what stain I'll use. I'll let you know that once I get to that point, but we'll go ahead and we'll get it stained. And then each of the letters are going to be painted black, and then I'm going to paint the vegetable section, whatever those colors are, as well as the basil too, and I'll get that all painted, and I'll let you see all of that. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to shape my leaves, get them kind of round over the corners. I don't want to do too much here, just enough to give it that look of leaves. So here we go. right, so I've got these kind of sanded down. A lot more detail in here than here, but that's all right. This will be painted, and I'll put in some shadowing and what have you with the actual paint itself. So we'll get to see what this looks like here in a little bit. So it is time to paint. We're going to go ahead and we're going to paint all these letters black. This is part of the logo that I showed you at the beginning. And so these are going to get painted black. Once that's done, I'm going to go ahead and get out the colors, and I'm going to do the tomatoes, chili, and garlic. And then I'm also going to do the basil. And after saying that, I'm now kind of in the mood for some pasta. One of the really fun realities of doing these things, especially with small things, tiny little cutouts and what have you. I have all my letters, but this little tiny letter N, I can't find it. I painted it. It was the last one I painted. And I went to get my iPad so I can get the coloration on these so I know what I'm doing. And this was gone. It's nowhere to be seen. So I had to cut out a brand new one, and we'll paint him black here in just a little bit. But for now, we're going to go ahead and get our colors out and start painting. I'm going to do these first, and then we'll move on to this one. All right, so the first thing I want to do is I want to get some of the darker color down. So I'm going to go ahead and get a little bit of water on this, and then I'm going to go ahead and paint the areas that are going to be darker. I'm going to flip this around. I need to get this to the right way. You can't see it, but it's to match my photo that I'm using. I forgot to turn the camera on, my apologies. But I've got the chili peppers done. I've got, well, they're not done, but they're painted. So now I need to get some highlights in here a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and do some beige color. So part of doing this is getting these letters nice and straight, and it's even more difficult when you have this rough lumber like this. This dips down in here. So what I've done is I've measured in from the sides to get an equal distance that way, and then I've measured from the top of the sign to the bottom of each of these end letters to give me where it needs to be. Now what I'll do is I'm going to place this just across the bottom, just like that. It's all I'm doing is using this so that I know where to put the bottom of my letters. All right, so now what I need to do is get some glue dropped out. I'm just using some Titebond Quick and Thick. The one problem with doing it like this, I don't know, I just don't care. So I put the glue on my fingertip to get it on the back of the sign, on the back of the letter, and then I'll put it in place, push it down. The one big reason I like this Quick and Thick is once it dries, I've got squeeze out. I'm always going to get squeeze out on these letters because they're so tiny. And it's difficult to get enough glue on them so that they hold. All right, so now we'll go ahead and gently pull that blue tape off of there. Make sure everything stays nice and straight, which it didn't. And now we'll go ahead and we're going to start getting the next set of letters in place. So carefully just generally place them where they're going to go. These don't have to be perfect yet. Now that we see those are somewhat in place, we're going to take a straight edge. In this case, it's a metal ruler. And we're going to just kind of line that thing up so that we can get these letters in place and give a nice, straight, even line across the bottom so that they are straight. All right, so now I want to make sure they're somewhat centered underneath the upper saying and also from left to right. So now I can go ahead and lay down this piece of blue tape, give us a nice straight line. That way I can, when I start gluing them, I have something to like butt them up against. And what I'm doing now is I'm going to go ahead and measure each side, the left side and the right side, make sure I have the same amount of distance in that tape, which if you'll notice the right side, I think I'm a little bit low here, so or a little bit high, sorry. I'm going to move that and get that adjusted just right. All right, now that they're there, I'm going to go ahead and, just like before, put some of that Quick and Thick glue on the back here and get these things all in place. And then we'll move on to the next part. Now with these letters, these things are very, very small. So I'll go ahead and kind of get them in their general spot. And I need tweezers to move these things around. They kind of stick to my grubby little hands, so the tweezers work just fine to get them where they need to be. And there you have it. Everything's glued. And don't worry, the white that you see showing on that glue, that dries clear. The sound was out on that last part, so what I did is I got glue on the tomatoes and garlic and such, and I just eyeballed it. I centered it. Now we're going to do the same with our bay leaves, and I want to get those centered on everything and push it down to lock it into place. All right, very happy with that. The whole thing, I think, looks pretty darn good. So now I need to let that all dry and I can put a finish on it and we're done.